Oscar Bevis, IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast here at Fight Factory today in Gloucester with Max Mudway. How are we, mate?
Yeah, not so bad, mate. We good?
Good stuff. Last time you spoke to Andy, it was you and John, and you sort of went into a couple of years you had having the best time of your life. Yeah. No longer a party animal, just a fighter now. And we're, just, how have you been since, what was that, December time, Gavin Gwynn? No, it weren't. It was early this year. Feels like it's been a while, yeah. What have you been up to in that time?
Just been getting my head down, really, mate. Just training, you know, just sort of setting my sights on what I want to achieve and setting some goals. I'm lucky enough to have a good team around me, so we're always setting goals for each other, you know, pushing each other. And it's always good as well to have someone in the gym that's actually active, you know, like really fighting for the British and all that sort of thing. It gives us all motivation to stay on it and look to the next sort of step, really.
And I imagine you thought that about Gavin as well, seeing that loads of hype around Sean McComb. Gavin doing that and coming away with that belt, that's the sort of thing I can imagine watching that makes you go, shit, I really want this.
Oh, 100%, mate. I mean, we do a lot with St. Joe's, and I'd say Gavin's like part of the boys, you know. We got there sparring all the time, so yeah, so see almost like one of our own win a title is always amazing. It was also good for me to do a bit of a recce as well. I mean, that Samuel Antwi, welterweight, had a good fight against, I forget the lad's name, but he won the English title as well. And me and Sam had two amateur fights as amateurs, and I lost both narrowly. So maybe at some point in the distant future we could have a third one, you know, make a bit of a trilogy out of it. So yeah, it was a real good night of boxing, and it did give me a massive push and gives you actually a little bit of motivation to push on, you know.
That's what we want. 1 minute 13 and I've already found out there's some juice to talk about. You and Samuel Antwi. I've got to talk about weight-wise first. I know you said to Andy last time, welter or super welter. Yeah. You're any closer to knowing what you'll be at, or I suppose welter if you've got your eye on Sam?
Yeah, I mean, when it gets down to the nitty-gritty and the live fights, it'll be welter. At the moment, I'm sitting around sort of 72, 73 kg. I mean, I'm not going to kill myself to get down to a welterweight when I've still got a couple 6-rounders to go, a couple learning fights. I know I've got my sights set on the Southern Area title, but I know COVID sort of come at the time where I was about to make my mark and get past my learning fights and start making a big sort of push. So now I've still got to sort of go through those steps, you know.
And obviously, talk about Samuel. I know I spoke to him before. He wants to fight everyone. He's that sort of guy. And I suppose, no disrespect himself, at this point in time at 4-0, he will be looking at that and he won't take something like that seriously. Do you know what I mean? If you were to call for Samuel. So you know that you've still got to do just a bit more show, perhaps some more things that are in your armoury, and then you go for it.
Exactly that. I mean, like I say, I'm under no shadow of doubt that those sort of fights aren't quite in my grasp yet. Before lockdown, I was supposed to be fighting in April 2020 and also June. I probably would have ended up having another 2 fights that year as well. So by now, really, I probably would have been well on my way to getting a serious fight, you know. But as long as I've learned a lot in the last year about myself and about my boxing in general. I've learned probably more in the last year than I have in my whole boxing career so far to date. So that's absolutely massive for me, and it's going to prove to be massive for me as I move forward as well.
It's mad, because I could be standing here talking to you with a belt. Like you said, you could have had more fights that year, you could have a belt. And I don't know, like obviously you're back boxing now after doing your time away for a bit. There will be so many lads out there that wouldn't have come back, and you'd never know. Lads who could have been world champions. It's thrown so many people away, isn't it, man?
100%. I mean, there was a big part of me that thought boxing was over for me and I wasn't ever going to come back. I had a big gap away from amateurs. I think it was a two-year gap before I actually had another fight, and what it was, I had a white-collar fight and I actually earned a little bit of money at it. And the first thought in my mind was, fucking hell, I can make a little bit of money out of this, you know. So, and John was always telling me, like, go pro, mate, you should do it. But when you're trying to tell someone something and they're on a different path, it's not really, it just doesn't sort of go right. But I got my head down, I sorted out my priorities, and here I am. And the world is my oyster, mate. I tell you, I'm on the next level, and it's coming.
Good stuff. I want to talk about the fights you've had so far, so just going to briefly cover them, especially the one recently, right? Because one of my good pals, John Hedges, made his professional debut, fought Jan Ardon, and he got a bit of stick. A lot of people didn't think John won the fight, and I looked at your record this morning, and Jan's the last person you went in with, and he's a good geezer, isn't he? He's very good, that Jan.
Yeah, that was probably, well, out of my 4 fights so far, that's probably my biggest learning fight. more so for me in the build-up of the fight. I mean, as people say, these fights aren't just about these sort of initial fights. Starting from the bottom as we have, they're not just about getting in there, taking out the fucking first biggest name you can. It's about learning as well, and a pro is so different to amateur, especially like not just from the actual fighting, but from the build-ups and everything. And it was actually the build-up of that fight where I learned more about myself than I ever have. The dieting, cutting weight at the right point, and being on point for that day, you know. And Jan Arden was a tough boy, but I beat him convincingly, and that's what you get, you know.
Sign of the talent was the sort of thing that I'm getting at. Yeah, just before we wrap up, if you're going to be welterweight, I might as well ask you who the best welterweight in the world is. It's one of the things that everyone wants to see, perhaps Spence and Crawford. Might as well put it to your best welterweight in the world.
I mean, I like to think locally, really. I like to watch all my Conor Benns, you know.
Did your interest peak in the UK then, and not as much in the States? Obviously, you watch them, you like them, but you're more UK orientated then, yeah?
I'm massively UK orientated, I'd say. I mean, I've just got my eyes on like sort of British levels sort of fighters, and I'm not really I don't really watch too many American fights, but yeah, I mean, British is sort of where I sort of look to.
Do you watch guys that you perhaps might be in the other corner to in 3 years' time, rather than guys that are at the peak of the game now, which you've got years until that's the move for you?
100%. Like I say, I mean, when I first started my professional career, I used to like sort of just dream to myself like fucking Conor Benn, that'd be an unreal fight, the warrior against the warrior, you know. And you never know, in a few years' time, maybe it can come, you know. So we'll see what happens.
All right, good stuff. I'm now going to title this Max Mudway calls out Conor Benn, and we'll see where it goes, yeah? Sweet with that?
Yeah, well, you know, see how it goes. Don't think it will get far with where he is in his career, you know, so.
Cutting the sponsors on the end so he doesn't get in trouble. Max Mudway, hit me.
So yeah, I just want to say massive thanks to my sponsors, RM Decorators, Kiblek Electrical and Security, Pew Plus, MRCB Home Improvements, Champion Home Improvements, Believe Interiors, Syson Barbers, RSG Construction, and my boy Luke Collins from The Goodness Kitchen. So yeah, thanks guys.
I thought he was doing really well to remember him, then I realised you got a t-shirt on. So I've just baited you out then, but yeah, well done. Cheers, Max. Thanks for your time. Cheers.